even when IPOB has consistently and repeatedly said, look, we are not the ones who are carrying all these attacks, yet those attacks continues. And so the only way to ensure that you do a proper investigation and come out with a proper outcome in your investigation is to not limit your investigative horizon to IPOB or Southeast. Expand it so that you'll be able to have a wider dragnet to look at. And when you administer collective punishment on them, they will not be willing to give you that information. So it's a very delicate balance that the armed forces will have to now work. You know, okay, there has to be deterrence, and at the same time, we need these people to provide us intelligence information to find out the real culprit, the actual people that perpetrated the crime.
Sorry to butt in there, as if you even just took the next question from my mouth or from my mind. I was going to ask, is it part of the training when they go to the military, or when they have your military training? Is it part of it that if one military person is being abused or beaten, immediately the whole battalion should come and invade the place and shut it down?
Well, I don't know about invading the place and shutting it down. But in the armed forces, we are a band of brothers. And so the military will go to any length to protect their greatest asset. Their number one, first and only asset is their personnel. And so whatever it takes to protect them, they must do it. You see, American military is still going back to Vietnam to go and look for the remains of their, demise colleague that had died decades ago in Vietnam War, to bring their remains back to America and give them, befitting burial. You see, the Navy SEALs putting their lives at risk to go and rescue one of their colleagues that is kidnapped or taken hostage somewhere. You see, that is an oath we take not just only to the state, but to ourselves as service members to look out for each other. That's why I told you that in the armed forces, there is no Igbo, there is no Yoruba, there is no Hausa. What you have is the armed forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Because your life depends on the ability of this other person to do his job and do it well. There are still people who listen to him. And that is why I say that releasing him from detention is going to make him a stakeholder in restoration of law and order in the Southeast, because he still commands the loyalty and the respect and the obedience of those his mass followings in the Southeast. So by mere speaking to them, those people with their nerves will be calmed down and they will be removed from the equation. So maybe those who are opposed to his release are those who are afraid of that his mass following. He's a popular figure in the Southeast. Very few people can be locked up for how long he has been locked up and still have people protesting and agitating in their name. I think the most two popular people in the Southeast right now is P2B on one hand and Mazi Nnamdi Kanu on the other hand. From my own assessment, they are the two most popular individuals in the Southeast. So maybe those who are sitting on, who are opposed to his release, are afraid of his huge following in the Southeast. That is the only way I can see it.
Now let's begin this conversation taking our quote from Lucius Anicius, who is a poet. He once said, "Brave men rejoice in adversity, just as brave soldiers triumph in war." My next quote is from George Patton Jr., who once said, "It is foolish and wrong to mourn the men who died. Rather, we should thank God that such men lived." Okay. My last quote is from George Marshall, who once said that the soldier's heart, the soldier's spirit, the soldier's soul are everything. Absolutely spot on. Very warm greetings and welcome to The Conversation, reaching you from Captain's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Annabelle Oji. this morning we'll turn attention to all that happened in Abia State. And like a colleague of mine said, Abia State is in the news for the very wrong reason. Well, it is what it is. But my guest on the show today would help us, give us like an insight. He'll be our eyes on all that happened in Abia State and how to ensure that it doesn't happen again. Because most people will say it's almost the same thing that happened in Okwama community. Is it? That would be our basis, or that would be our conversation for this morning. My guest on the show today is Captain Bishop Johnson, U.S. Army retired, military and security strategist. Great to have you on the show this morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, so like I said, my colleague says that all of a sudden, Abia State is trending for the very wrong reason. Even though a few days ago, celebrated or commemorated the 365 days of the present administration. And I saw some social media comments that says a particular person just wrote Abia State is 365 days ahead. Federal government or Bola Ahmed Tinubu is 365 days ahead. Use your tongue to count your teeth. And I don't even know what I don't know what the person meant, but I'm sure it was just being very cynical. But now let's talk about all that happened in Abia State recently. Give us an insight on all that happened and what are your own personal view of all that happened. I hear some people say it's a guerrilla warfare and all. People have given it so many names. What are your thoughts on all that happened?
Okay. Once again, good morning and thank you for having me. For about a year now, since Dr. Alex Oti came into office, there has been some very concerted, which most Nigerians will attest to, effort to restore peace in Abia, bringing investment into Abia, particularly in that Aba area,
right,
where this incident took place. We were all witnesses to the geometric power plant that restored the constant electricity to some local government areas in that area to boost our businesses. So, although this one incident is one incident that Abia didn't need, but before then, Abia has been on the news for all the good reasons, all the things that Dr. Alex Oti has been doing. And so, for me, I don't think it's a coincidence that people would want to go to Abia State, particularly in that Aba area where he has made so much investment in, to make Aba, which has always been a commercial nerve center in the southeast and even in Nigeria, to be attractive for investment. And to some extent, he has been successful. So I don't think it's a coincidence that they targeted that particular area in which this governor has been making this investment, just to create, an insecurity or behavior, because, wherever there is this insecurity, the likelihood of investors to invest their money in that area is very, very minimal.
Right.
And so I am seeing this thing as a sabotage or a conspiracy to discredit the efforts of the governor in trying to bring investment to Aba and by extension Abia State.
Are you saying that the killing of these soldiers were politically motivated?
You see, since law and order broke down in the southeast, a lot of actors have been, on play in that region. There are some of those violence that are politically motivated. There are some that had been hijacked by some criminal elements who intended their intended primary objective is to commercialize, the upheaval of insecurity for economic gains. It's more like what you see in the Northwest, where the bandits are using hostage takings and stuff like that to, make money, So there are some elements there within the region that are also doing the same thing. There are also some other elements in the region that their intention is just to ensure that the region remains, in perpetual insecurity because it benefits them. There is an instance somebody said, his forces, a private army, was deployed in the southeast, and southeasterners had been complaining before now that some of the people who have been caught, perpetrating these atrocities do not speak the kind of Igbo that you and I speak. The Igbo, if somebody is fluent in Igbo, you will know. There are some of those corrupt Igbo dialects that when somebody speaks it, you know that that person comes from the fringes of, of the heartland of Igbo land. So that person is not from there. And so we have long suspected there are people coming from other regions to come and perpetrate these attacks in the southeast. Because as long as southeast is in perpetual insecurity, their own region will stand to benefit. We've seen businesses relocate from Onitsha to Asaba as a result of the insecurity in the southeast.
So sorry, Azabodin, which region are you referring to in this context?
I am coming.
Okay.
We've also seen businesses migrate from Owerri to Port Harcourt. Aba is not far from Port Harcourt. And so you will see that, southeast loss can actually be south-south gain.
Right.
Because people will naturally relocate from areas that are, unstable security-wise to areas that have more stability in terms of security. So in my piece, which I think you got the
yes, we'll touch on it.
Yes, that's why I was suggesting to security agencies and the armed forces not to focus their investigation solely in the southeast, but to expand the investigative dragnet beyond that region, because there is possibility that some of the people who are coming into the southeast to perpetuate this insecurity may not actually come from the southeast. They may have come from other regions that have, that may benefit in situations where the southeast is losing.
That's quite interesting. That's another twist to all that I've heard or read recently. What exactly make you think that people or indigenes of rivers, Port Harcourt or South or the Akwa Iboms and all might have anything to do with or might want to rejoice in seeing people from the southeast dying or crying or even in this kind of insecurity measure?
You see, in investigation, you can't rule out anything. If you rule out anything in investigation, you are limiting your ability to be able to succeed in that investigation. In investigation, you must be broad. So that way you'll be able to drag in all of the dynamics that will assist you in carrying out a proper investigation. If you limit your horizon, you're also limiting your ability to succeed. What I'm saying is that the armed forces and security agencies should not limit their investigation to the southeast. They should be open-minded, broad-minded, and they should as well expand their investigative dragnet beyond the southeast. It is on national television that someone from South had said that his army, his personnel, were in the southeast fighting, carrying out some security operations. So it will not be out of place if there are people from outside the southeast who are coming into the southeast to carry out these attacks as false flag operations, to make it look like the attack is from IPOB or Southeasterners. Even when IPOB has consistently and repeatedly said, look, we are not the ones who are carrying out these attacks, yet those attacks continues. And so the only way to ensure that you do a proper investigation and come out with a proper outcome in your investigation is to not limit your investigative horizon to IPOB or Southeast. Expand it so that you'll be able to have a wider dragnet to look at.
So I also hear Mazi Nnamdi Kanu also wash his hands of what happened. So now you also this revelation that you're giving, did you just notice that they should the security officials, they should extend their dragnets to even the southern part of the country? Is it because of what happened recently, or you just had this probably a premonition or this revelation? It's been a long time coming.
Southeasterners had always said that those who have been killing them in the past do not speak decentralized Igbo, that they speak some kind of corrupt Igbo. So it will not be out of place to have people who are at the fringes of Igbo land commit these crimes in the middle of Southeast. So all we are saying is based on what has been said in the past by some people in the national media, that security agents and armed forces should not limit their horizon to the Southeast, that they should expand their investigative dragnet to cover some of these areas. You know, who knows? I don't know who carried out the attack. I can't tell you authoritatively that this is who carried out the attack. But that is the essence of investigation. Investigation is to reveal and find out, track these people down, find out who carried out the attack. And for you to be able to track these people down, you should not limit yourself to just the Southeast and the IPOB, because it may not be IPOB people that carried out this attack. And IPOB people have come out repeatedly to say, look, we are not responsible. And the attackers may not come from the Southeast. They may come from outside the Southeast. So expanding your investigative dragnet is going to provide you that wide horizon to carry out a thorough and proper investigation that may enable you to track down the actual perpetrators of this crime.
All right, now so let's go back to the where all of this started. Now, on that fateful day, or that was supposed to be like a celebration for all Igbo people, and you have this attack happen that killed these soldiers. Now, I had a guest who actually stated that, yes, we already know that if you are celebrating the Igbo Day, you should not even think about only the Southeasterners. Also think about this other people, the Southerners that have, or some other persons who have, like the River State person, the Akwa Ibom, that you can also, even the Ebonyi people, that you definitely join them to it. You cannot talk about Igbo Day or Biafra Day without talking about some of these people. But then, according to him, he also stated that what that attack is because the federal government decided to turn a blind eye to that particular day, the Igbo Day, the celebration of Igbos. Because if the federal government can decide to celebrate their 365 days, and then you have security officials here, there, everywhere, but on that particular day, you don't have so much, there's no enthusiasm from the federal government as it should be, only from the Igbo people. That part of it is what could have led to that crime. Do you agree?
Well, it's a work in progress, right? It's normal for people to celebrate their heroes. You know, there are some aspects of that celebration that I don't agree with IPOB, right? Okay. And that aspect is the aspect of trying to forcefully restrict people to their homes. On 27th of May last month, the US celebrated Memorial Day. And Memorial Day is the day that the country come out to, mourn and remember all their war deads, those who have fought for America to become what America is today. So there is nothing wrong in people, having a ceremony or remembering those who had fought and died on their behalf. Even within the United States, there are still other people that celebrate their heroes, right? Martin Luther King birthday used to be celebration of black people alone. But as black people continue doing that, it became a federal holiday. There are still some states that don't recognize that, but majority of the country recognizes that. So it's a work in progress. So where I disagree with IPOB is this idea of that people must be restricted to their homes. And the reason why I disagree with them on that is this. People should be able to go out and carry out their socio-economic activities. For example, the US that I mentioned, people go out, they go to the cemeteries, they lay, wreaths and flowers on the graves of those who had fallen. something like that can happen. We can build a museum, Civil War museum, where some of these high figures, some of all these people that had fought and died, for that passed away, that we're trying to remember, can be in their images can be in this museum, and people can go out there and see them. It's a source of tourism and income, right? And so restricting people to their houses is not the way to go, considering the fact that the Southeast, most people there are usually traders. Majority of the people are traders, and they're petty traders, which means that they must go out on daily basis to be able to eke out a living. So even restricting them for a few hours to their homes is going to cause a lot of serious economic upheaval for them. And so that's where I don't agree with them. Now, as far as remembering your word, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, the federal government should not even be fighting them to, because they want to remember their fathers and grandfathers who fought and died in a Nigerian war, because it was a Nigerian war. I don't see anything wrong with that at all. So it's by trying to suppress it, that is where you get this kind of angry reactions. But I'm not saying that this particular incident emanated from IPOB itself. Like I alluded in my previous, explanation here. It may or may not have been someone from the Southeast who carried out the attack. And also, there's this, because this is where the media is getting it wrong. Biafra is not about the Igbos alone. Right. Biafra is not about the Southeast alone. In fact, it wasn't even an Igbo man that came up with that name, Biafra. Biafra is about the old Eastern Nigeria, which includes all of the states of the Southeast, including Akwa Ibom in the South, Cross River, Rivers, Bayelsa, and even part of Delta. So it's not an Igbo thing. It's not a Southeast thing. But the misconception that has been out there in the public is that Biafra is about the Southeast. It's not about the Southeast. Southeast alone did not make up Biafra. Igbos alone did not make up Biafra.
Okay, so I think I need to resound that. If whenever you hear Biafra, it's not
Igbo.
Right.
Whenever you hear Biafra, it's not Igbo. The bite of Biafra that you hear about is not in Igbo land. It's as the bite of Guinea, at the Atlantic. So Biafra is not Igbo thing. It's not a Southeastern. It's old Eastern Nigerian thing. When Nigeria was a tripod, right? You have Eastern region, Northern region, and Western region. So the Eastern region part of that tripod is what is Biafra. During the Civil War, but even as Ojukwu was the head of state of the new declared Biafra, Effiong who is from present day Cross River State, was his second in command. When Ojukwu fled, he was the one who stayed behind. So Biafra is not a Southeast thing. Biafra is not an Igbo thing. Biafra is old Eastern Nigeria. And that is the point that needs to be emphasized in this country for people to understand that.
All right. Let's go on a quick break, and when we return, we'll continue this conversation with Captain Bishop Johnson. But before we go on that break, I'll leave you with that reminder, like a word on marble. Biafra is not an Igbo thing. It's an the old Eastern Nigeria map, not just restricted to Igbo. So let's go on the quick break, and when we return, we'll continue this conversation. See you later. Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is The Conversation, reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. If you just joined us, you've actually missed out on the first part of the show, but then you can still join in, as our guest on the show today is Captain Bishop Johnson, U.S. Army retired and military security strategist. All right, before we went on that break, we've actually stated a number of things, but then what we're able to take out from that first segment is the fact that Biafra is not just, because I hear some people say it's Nyamiri or it is Omoibo thing. It doesn't concern the people from Akwa Ibom and other parts of the country, but it's actually good that you've been able to state that. Now, in one of your writing that you actually sent, you said, and quote, "These innocent soldiers were ordinary Nigerians, I beg your pardon, who were someone's father, brother, uncle, nephew, son, and had nothing to do with Nigeria's intricate politics. To gun them down in such a heinous manner stands condemned. The armed forces of Nigeria should do whatever it takes to track down these animals and bring them to justice." You stated that you have confidence that the Nigerian armed forces will do just that and will also conduct themselves in a manner that is devoid of collective punishment that will pitch them against innocent citizens of Aba, who they should work with to find the perpetrators of this dastardly and unwarranted attack. Now, to that statement, I've heard most people talk about like what happened in Barnex, one beating all the armed forces guy, the soldiers just raided the whole place, shut down the whole place for hours, days. I hope it's not the same thing that would happen again in Aba. And then most other persons will say, okay, the same thing that happened in Okwama community. One attack that killed 17 soldiers, and then the whole place was completely locked down. But then I understand the fact that the governor of ABIA State has actually weighed into this, all that happened, and we are hoping not to see a reprisal attack. But let's get from you, in all that has happened, I hope you're not looking forward to a reprisal attack, because it will not be good at all.
Yeah, from the article that I wrote, that which you quoted me correctly, I had hope that the military will conduct themselves in very professional manner and avoid collective punishment, because in collective punishment, most people that suffer are innocent people that had nothing. That's why I said the soldiers had nothing to do with Nigeria's intricate politics. These soldiers, if you look at the names of the soldiers that were killed, I think about 3 of them are Igbos, as a matter of fact. Because in the armed forces, there is no Igbo, there is no Yoruba, there is no Hausa, there is no Fulani. What you have are members of Nigerian armed forces that come from everywhere. So whenever they wear that uniform, they're wearing the uniform of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And these people are people's relatives. I have brothers that serve in the police. In fact, a large number of my family members serve in Nigerian police. And so we cannot allow this idea that we will target our service members to become a norm in this country. It can't be a tradition where innocent, these soldiers you see on the checkpoints are not the ones that are making this decision. Their own is to carry out a decision that has been made by our political leaders. Okay, so you can't target them. Their own is, you see, one of the doctrines of armed forces is that you don't ask if there's any mission you're sent, you have no input in it. The only input you have in it is to carry out that mission and be successful. Right. How you are going to be successful in that mission. You can't question them. Why are you sending me? Why should I? No. You have to take orders and do what you are ordered to do. And so these soldiers are doing what they are mandated to do by the Constitution. And so targeting them is completely unacceptable. We cannot make it a tradition. We can't make it a norm. And that is why you see in the armed forces making serious effort to see that there's deterrence to citizens attacking their own soldiers. You see, the military is not only the protector of the state. The military, everywhere in the world, is also the guarantor of the state. Because when all hell break loose, all of the institutions of a state fail, the armed forces are always there to pick up that slack and be able to sustain that state. So, is the protector of the state as well as the guarantor of the state. You see what is happening in Sudan right now. It is the Sudanese armed forces that are fighting to ensure that there is still a place called Sudan. And that is what happens in other countries. So, targeting these innocent service members who are doing nothing other than obeying orders which our political and elected leaders had asked them to do must be condemned and is unacceptable. And whoever does that, we must find a way to track those people down and make sure that they are severely punished. There must be deterrence so that this does not become a tradition, whether it's in Okoma or is somewhere in northwestern Nigeria or is somewhere in the southeast. It cannot be condoned, and it shouldn't be tolerated.
Okay.
But I also advise, because as a military, you can't succeed without the public support. You need trove of intelligence from the public to be able to even find out these people. And when you administer collective punishment on them, they will not be willing to give you that information. So it's a very delicate balance that the armed forces will have to now work. You know, okay, there has to be deterrence, and at the same time, we need these people to provide us intelligence information to find out the real culprit, the actual people that perpetrated the crime.
Sorry to butt in there, as if you even just took the next question from my mouth or from my mind. I was going to ask, is it part of the training when they go to the military, or when they have your military training? Is it part of it that if one military person is being abused or beaten, immediately the whole battalion should come and invade the place and shut it down?
Well, I don't know about invading the place and shutting it down, but in the armed forces, we are a band of brothers, and so the military will go to any length to protect their greatest asset. Their number one, first and only asset is their personnel. And so whatever it takes to protect them, they must do it. You see, American military is still going back to Vietnam to go and look for the remains of their, demise colleagues that had died decades ago in Vietnam War, to bring their remains back to America and give them, befitting burial. You see, the Navy SEALs putting their lives at risk to go and rescue one of their colleagues that is kidnapped or taken hostage somewhere. You see, that is an oath we take, not just only to the state, but to ourselves as service members, to look out for each other. That's why I told you that in the armed forces, there is no Igbo, there is no Yoruba, there is no Hausa. What you have is the armed forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Because your life depends on the ability of this other person to do his job and do it well. In the barracks or your duty post, it's not everybody that stands guard at the same time. They do shift. While you are on guard, those other people who are not on guard, who are sleeping, their lives depend on you not falling asleep while you're on guard. Their lives depend on you doing your job efficiently and effectively. And so that's why you don't do discrimination. You don't say this is Igbo, or this is Yoruba, this is Hausa, or this is Fulani, or this is Muslim, and this is Christian. Because you have to work together, because all of your lives depend on each other. And so, I don't know about invading a place, but I know that the way this thing is going, there has to be deterrence. We can't allow citizens to attack and kill their service members just at will. And it becomes a norm.
Now, why I actually made that example is because of what happened in Banex. One soldier been beaten, and then before you know it, Banex was locked down. Yeah, because the military is trying to send a message that it cannot be normal for you to attack their personnel. I don't know the details of that Banex thing. I didn't follow it, like that. I was looking at it from the perspective that, look, okay, the soldier was he was not on duty. He was conducting his private affairs, went to buy phone, and, obviously they sold the wrong phone to him, which he has a right to return. If you sell something that is bad to somebody and the person brings it back, you have to do one or two things. Either one, you refund the person back his money, or you give him the one that works. What is the need fighting for it? You see, Nigerians and our society had gotten to that level that money control, had taken over our normal, ordinary, moral lives. It's not supposed to be a complicated thing that we need to fight. That I purchased something from you, and what I purchased from you doesn't work. I brought it back with a receipt.
And then you're telling me stories. What story do you want to tell me?
I think we need to sound this alarm, especially to markets like Ladipo, Computer Village, because I hear reports like this happen all the time.
So what story do you want to tell me? I should forfeit my money and take your item that has defect? No. Either you give me back my money or you give me another one that works. It's not supposed to be complicated. It's not supposed to lead to such a situation that brings the nation to that kind of level of embarrassment, in which you see people on video beating a soldier that is in uniform. So I think what the military tries to do is to send a very strong signal that this is unacceptable, and I believe they've done that. So in as much as I don't condone collective punishment of innocent citizens, we will not also support a situation where Nigerian citizens become completely lawless. This is supposed to be a country of law and order, and that law and order applies to everyone, citizens and service members alike. Nobody should be above the law. Everybody should conduct themselves within the confines of the law.
All right, let's see how we can end this particular matter. Now, still, you've stated it before, but still in that piece that you wrote, you said the peaceful Southeast is a threat to these people that you talked about earlier, and their criminal enterprise. So they must do whatever it takes to ensure that insecurity, lawlessness, chaos, death, and destruction persist, as that's the only way they can remain in business. What is the way forward to this, to end this, so we don't see it happen? Because if it happen, even though it's not same, but almost same, happen in Okwama, it's happening in ABIA. What should be done to ensure that it doesn't happen again, whether in the north or in the south or in the east?
What should be done? I will have to separate them, because the Southeast is a little bit different in the sense that there is an agitation.
Right.
In the right or wrong, there's an agitation in the Southeast. And it is in the course of that agitation that we found ourselves where we are in the Southeast now. Prior to that time, the Southeast was one of the most peaceful regions in this country until that time. And let me tell you, the best measure of security is to ensure that there is no breakdown of law and order in the first instance. The moment there has been a breakdown of law and order, to restore that law and order, it takes you much more than to break it. That is why it's incumbent on us to ensure that there is no breakdown of law and order in the first instance. Now, the law has broken down already, and there is already chaos in the region. And so we have to explore all the avenues to ensure that we return law and order to the region. And one of those avenues is, you see, some of for example, the sit-at-home orders, which some of us had also fought against because of its socio-economic impact on the people of the Southeast. What is this continuous detention and incarceration of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu? People are issuing these illegal orders of sit-at-home. Even when he had come out repeatedly to say, look, I don't support it. Even when IPOB had come out to say, look, it is not us giving this order. I'm not with particular reference to the May 30th one, because the May 30th one was them that issued that order. Before then, there had been, sit at home all the time. That was ravaging the economy. And people were using the cover of his incarceration to give all these incessant and arbitrary and illegal orders of sit at home. And so people use that cover to carry out all these atrocities across the region. So what we are saying is this, because the case of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, as far as I'm concerned, is a political issue, therefore requires political solution. So what we are saying is that it is time for federal government to use its power to withdraw this matter from the court. After all, they are the ones that filed the matter in the court, so they also can withdraw it. There are provisions in our law that allows the Attorney General of the Federation to do so. So we are saying that they should invoke that power, withdraw this matter from the court, and settle this thing politically, so that this country can begin to bind the wounds of division. The country is too divided. There is too much acrimony from all different quarters. And as a nation, we can't survive with all these acrimonies everywhere. So that we will begin to redirect this nation to part of national reconciliation and the unity. Abraham Lincoln, after the Civil War, he came out and he was in his statement, which I think I quoted in that article, said that, look, to an American nation that was even far more divided than this our own, that they are not enemies, but that they are friends. That the bond of affection may have, withered somehow. But he was still calling for national unity and reconciliation. If you read that article, you get the exact quote of what I stated. So what I'm saying is that availing Mazi Nnamdi Kanu political solution to his situation right now is the best way to go. If we do that, we will be able to address some of the missteps of the past that brought us to where we are today.
Okay, Captain Johnson, let me sorry I have to butt in. Let me play the devil's advocate and then have people who would ask, what has Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's release immediately got to do with anything here at all to solve or to bring down this quagmire? What has it got to do with anything at all? Because I also saw one of your article where you stated there was a question, why should Nnamdi Kanu be released? So why exactly should Nnamdi Kanu be released, especially in this matter, even though he said in the next 3 minutes it will all be resolved? But then if you have someone who has been incarcerated for months, years now, and then you have some other Igbo leaders or Igbo people at the head or at the helm of affair, even prefer, let him just stay there.
Yeah. You see, you can't continue to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different outcome. Okay, the part we have taken, the part of keeping him in perpetual incarceration, has not brought peace to the Southeast. I am talking specifically for the Southeast. Now, all the other regions have their own peculiarities, and their own peculiarities will be dealt in accordingly to their own peculiarities. In the South is mostly about bunkering and oil theft and all that stuff. In the Northwest is about people who have decided that their only means of economic survival is to take people hostages and ask for ransom. So there are all different peculiarities. Now, with respect to the Southeast, there are still people who are carrying out these attacks on the cover that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is incarcerated, is still in detention, right? So what we will do is to play smart on these people.
Even though they already have infiltration here and there?
Yes, I'm coming to it. What we will have to do is to play smart on these people, avail a political solution to his situation, free him, and return him to the Southeast. Let him become a stakeholder in ensuring that there is peace in the Southeast. When we do this, we would have those people who are using his name under cover of his name to carry out this attack. We would have denied them that reason and frustrated them from using that reason to continue this attack again. Because now you can't say you are carrying out all these attacks because Nnamdi Kanu is in detention, because Nnamdi Kanu would have already been released. So those people would have denied them that reason. Now, any other person that continues to carry out these attacks will know that those people are criminals. Remember, I told you that there are several actors that are in play.
Right.
There are those who are politically motivated and sponsored. And there are criminal elements who have commercialized the upheaval of insecurity for their own financial gains. So what we'll do is those legitimate agitators, we'll remove them from the equation. The other people that will be left on the other side of the equation are now criminals. Those people can now be dealt with accordingly the way you deal with criminals. That's what some of us are saying.
So Captain Bishop Johnson, let me ask you one personal question.
Okay.
What exactly why is Nnamdi Kanu a threat to a lot of people in the Igbo land? Why is it that most of them, they're always gathering to say, let him be released, but when they go to their inner chamber, it becomes to your tent, O Israel?
Well, I don't know why they're doing that. If people are actually doing that, it's a betrayal of the cause. Because you cannot say you are for uprightness and then you are, overseeing the detention of your fellow man, or even to an extent the violation, because his lawyer has said his human rights have been violated. But what I can tell you is that there is no doubt that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu still has a huge following in the Southeast. There are still people who listen to him. And that is why I say that releasing him from detention is going to make him a stakeholder in restoration of law and order in the Southeast, because he still commands the loyalty and the respect and the obedience of those his mass followings in the Southeast. So by mere speaking to them, those people with their nerves will be calmed down and they will be removed from the equation. So maybe those who are opposed to his release are those who are afraid of that his mass following. He's a popular figure in the Southeast. Very few people can be locked up for how long he has been locked up and still have people protesting and agitating in their name. I think the most two popular people in the Southeast right now is P2B on one hand and Mazi Nnamdi Kanu on the other hand. From my own assessment, they are the two most popular individuals in the Southeast. So maybe those who are sitting on, who are opposed to his release, are afraid of his huge following in the Southeast. That is the only way I can see it.
So is it then safe to say that even though I see it as a very naughty statement or belief or mentality, most people would say that the Igbo man, they're always united to be divided?
There is nowhere in the world where everybody will speak in one voice. Not one place. You cannot name that place where everybody is speaking in one voice. There's always going to be, dissenting voices. You see what is happening in the United States. A former president was convicted of 34 counts of felony charges.
Yes, we're actually going to that.
He said his political vendetta, he's been with, witch hunt. So you see what is going on also in the UK. The Labour and the Conservatives are at each other right now. So it's delusional for people to think that when you have millions of people, that all of them will just come together and be singing Kumbaya. It's not going to happen. There are those who will have their own opinion, that their opinion will not agree with your opinion. But that is the beauty of democracy.
Right.
Democracy is for people to come out and express their views, even though their views may not align with your own views. But at the end of the day, you must be able to find a way, a common ground, in which you get a little bit and lose a little bit. I get a little bit and lose a little bit. The other person gets a little bit and lose a little bit. And all of us are in the center. That's how democracy works.
Okay, so now let's shift our attention. Let's tilt a little bit to other matters, because you mentioned the US. I'm going to read another piece that you wrote.
Okay.
It says, and quote, "No one is above the law. Donald John Trump, now a convicted felon, convicted in all 34 criminal count charges by a jury of his peers in New York State. At last, the law is now holding a thug, a racist, and an out-of-control business cheat to account. Today is the historic day in America. For the first time in over 200 years of the existence of American democracy, no former president has been convicted of a criminal charge. Nonetheless, 34 criminal count charges. Mr. Trump will be sentenced in July. United States is better off without him in America political landscape. He's a liar, an adulterer, and a cheat." Captain Bishop Johnson. That's a huge one.
Sure.
Tell us about this piece. Why exactly are you under Donald Trump's neck? Even though I sent the same thing to someone and then he said, "Oh, please, is the other guy even a saint?" Donald Trump did a whole lot. That's his own opinion, which he's entitled to. And then he says that Donald Trump did a whole lot. If Donald Trump was there, the Russian-Ukraine war would have been to an extent been abated. That's what he thinks. But here is Captain Bishop Johnson calling him all manner of names.
Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. America is a beacon of democracy. Most countries of the world look up to the United States for their own democracy. Now, with what is going on in America right now, America is on a hot seat, and people are beginning to question the potency of democracy. Never in the 200-year history of America has America put itself in such a position where people are beginning to question the efficacy of democracy. Most countries want democracy. Government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And such a system of government should never be allowed to perish from the face of the earth. And that is what will happen if Donald Trump is elected president again. His administration, I still remember what happened, was very chaotic. In a matter of weeks and months, he is hiring and firing people all over the place. He has no respect for the armed forces.
Is that a problem?
It's a serious problem.
Captain Johnson.
It's a serious problem. It shows instability in judgment.
So sorry, I have
so you hire me today, tomorrow you fired me. Where was your head when you were hiring me? Did you not, that factor that led you to fire me the next day, did you not consider it when you're hiring me? It puts a question mark on your judgment as a leader. You can't hire people today, the next day you fire them.
Okay, sorry I had to button. So do you agree with my other guest that says or believes that if Donald Trump was there, this Russia-Ukraine war would have been to an extent abated or obliterated? Are you of the same opinion?
No, I don't think that is the case. It will be only a matter of time before Ukraine has always been Russian target. They had always wanted Ukraine to be part of their country. In 2014, they took over Crimea, which was part of Ukraine. So it will be only a matter of time, whether they did it during Donald Trump's tenure or not. But it will happen. It's a matter of kicking the can down the road, or whose time did it happen. But it cannot be postponed perpetually because Russia has its eyes on Ukraine. So they must, one way or the other, invade Ukraine. In fact, the best thing that happened to Ukraine and the worst thing that happened to Russia is that they invaded Ukraine when Joseph Robert Biden II is in office. Because he is probably the most experienced individual to have ascended to the position of United States president. Having served as a House of Representative member, as a senator, as a vice president, and now as a president. Putin made the fundamental mistake of his life by invading Ukraine when Biden is in office. He invaded Ukraine in 2014 when Barack Obama was in office and took over Crimea. Barack Obama is to the left of Joe Biden. Joe Biden is not a leftist like that. He's a moderate Democrat, center left. And so to some extent, he's also hawkish. That is why you saw him build this coalition of, countries to confront Russia. We are past the stage where a country will just wake up and annex another country. It's something that we cannot allow to happen. So, Donald Trump, even we are here, coronavirus. You see, his administration is, unless people have amnesia that they don't remember things. I remember. Donald Trump was in national television telling them that they should be injecting disinfectant into people's body to cure their coronavirus. He fought the coronavirus, with complete chaos. Over 1 million American lives lost. It was Joseph R. Biden II who came into power and was able to bring coronavirus under control. Donald Trump created jobs as the president, but because the way he mismanaged the coronavirus pandemic, the entire jobs that he created was wiped off. Joseph R. Biden began to rebuild American economy.
Okay.
And brought back some of those jobs. You see, as a president, you can't solve all of the problems.
Right.
As you're solving one area, the other area is also, is also unfolding. He has no control over what Russia does in Ukraine, but he's punishing Russia. Even as we are talking about that, the one in Hamas also attacked Israel. And so those are some of the challenges that presidents of US face. They not only face domestic problems, but they also face foreign problems. Donald Trump may be okay, maybe in foreign standing, but America, those who live in America, and those of us whose families are in America, we have a stake in having an America that is progressing, that is stable, that there is no coronavirus.
All right.
That the economy is rebuilt,
All
that
right.
the unemployment level is down, that people have access to education, which Joe Biden has been doing.
All right.
By forgiving student loans, that people have access to health. All of those domestic internal issues are also important.
All right, Captain Johnson, I guess that's your opinion, and you are very well entitled to it. I'm so sure a lot of people will not agree with you.
Because you see, people are very, very sentimental and myopic here. They like Donald Trump, that Donald Trump was able to move U.S. embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. How does moving an embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, how does that impact my life?
Okay.
How does that impact your own life?
All right.
That he banned Muslims from poor countries, poor African countries, from coming to the United States. That is what people in Nigeria are celebrated.
All right.
So those Muslims, I don't know, human beings.
All right, Captain Johnson, there are quite a number of things we needed to talk about. We would have actually had, if we had time, to talk about the South Africa, what is happening in South Africa, and then with the BRICS rubble. A lot of people say that it is international politics, US trying to clamp down and then still remain as the boss. We still have a lot to talk about, but then we'll still find out time to talk about these matters. Thank you so much for coming. It's always a pleasure having these discussions with you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Right. All right, viewers, that's where we end this conversation for today. We have been chatting with Captain Bishop Johnson, who is U.S. Army retired. He's also a military and security strategist. And it's been a wonderful time here on The Conversation. How time flies when we're discussing serious matters that concerns our very own country, Nigeria. Till I come your way again, my name is Annabelle Oji. God bless you and yours. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Good morning.